Number 1. So this is something that happened a few years ago. I didn't consider sharing it, but I have been listening to stories on Let's Not Meet for a year or two, and finally decided it might be worth bringing up. I used to work at a hotel, and I use the word loosely. It was more of an inn that was in a sleepy beach town in Southern California, but it had plans to be part of someone's chain's hotels or something. The property was very small, but in a seriously idealistic location, so it was close enough to the water to be expensive, but not big enough to have more than one front desk employee working at a time. My sister and I worked there together, and we shared one manager. Aside from the housekeeping, they got to leave a lot sooner than the unfortunate front desk who worked nights. I used to work mornings, which is a lot more hectic considering checkouts at this particular property were tough. Plus, we didn't have a lot of things like dishwashers, so you had to wash everything by hand. My sister worked the nights, and I took the mornings, but I didn't mind the extra work, only because I didn't feel unsafe at the hotel at night. The area didn't have a lot of crime. It's just something about the way the front desk area looked. We had the front desk, and in front of it would be the breakfast area. It had tons of windows. It was more window than wall, and you could easily see out into the ocean and to the garden, as well as the stairs that came up into the lobby. In the daytime, it was really charming. But at night, it always felt unsettling to me, especially since, if you worked the night shift, you had to stay till 11 p.m. at night without even closing the front door. Now again, this wouldn't be a big deal, but we had no security, no cameras, not even housekeeping. It was just you by yourself with this black void to look out to while you counted down your hours until you could go home. One night, I had been stuck with the night shift covering for my sister. I didn't have my uniform or anything. It was kind of unexpected. For whatever reason, I decided to close the lobby door, and I'm glad I had. The door wasn't locked, so any late-night customers could come in, but none did that night. It had finally hit 11, and I was super relieved to get off. I began my end-of-shift duties, rolling the day, setting up for breakfast, etc. When I had finished everything, I had grabbed my keys and turned to turn off the lights before leaving when the phone rang. My gut tensed for a second, only because it was so loud and I was so surprised. We were supposed to forward the calls to our manager's phone in case someone got locked out of their room and we had to come down and help them. No electric plastic keys used here, ladies and gents. Old-fashioned metal keys for everyone. I pretty quickly calmed myself down because I was more annoyed than anything and stepped around the desk to answer the phone. I gave the, "Thank you for calling, this is, how can I help you" line, as I best could for being annoyed, that is. At first there was nothing, no one said anything. I said hello and asked if anyone was there. I thought it was a dead call or a butt dial, but I could hear the ocean on the other side. It was a particularly windy night, so the waves were louder than usual. I just hung up. When I went to leave again, the phone rang a second time. I picked up, gave the same line, and I finally got a response. "Are there any rooms available?" He didn't sound drunk. If anything, he sounded collected. The place was next to a bar, so if it was just some drunk dude, I would have known. He sounded calm, like unnervingly calm. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we're closing for the night," I responded. It's not uncommon for someone to find out our hotel on something like Priceline and try to get us to give them a lower price over the phone. What he continued to say, however, really scared me, and I don't scare easy. "Oh, so none are available?" "No, we're closing." "What about the one you're standing in front of?" I immediately froze. See, how the lobby is set up is that there's a door also behind the counter, and that door leads to another room that is directly behind the lobby. We're not allowed to close that one either, but I had left it open in case anyone needed help. All of the rooms are outside, like it's not within a contained space. All the halls that lead to other rooms and staircases are outside, so anyone can just walk up and walk around the hotel without being a guest or an employee. So quite literally, anyone can just come off the street and be anywhere in the hotel. It's one of the reasons why I left. I turned and closed the door behind me, locking it, and the front door was already closed as well. No, sir, we're all booked up. If there's anything you need, you'll have to call back in the morning. I was noticeably more scared now. I think my voice even cracked. I was going to hang up before he had something else. I like your tiger. In the most creepiest, most slithering voice I think I had ever heard. As I said before, I wasn't wearing my uniform that day. I had a gray shirt that had this rainbow paint splatter type tiger face on the front. I stared out into the windows before it really hit me. The lights inside the lobby lit up so you could see inside of it, while being from inside you just saw nothing but blackness. He was outside the lobby, probably most likely staring in through the glass. I didn't get to say anything before he asked, "Is the front door locked?" I threw the phone out of my hand and ran around the desk, locking the deadbolt on the front door. I began to, what I assume was, have a panic attack. I was crying and freaking out. I had never been so scared at one time in a really long time. Then banging came from the door, really aggressive and angry banging. I was too afraid to grab the phone that I had thrown. It had been flung across towards the window. So I grabbed my cell phone and locked myself into the bathroom that was right next to our desk. I called my aunt, who lived less than a mile away. I know I should have called the police, but I was really young at the time and I was out of my mind. She was a black belt, so I knew she could defend herself. I called her and barely was able to tell her what was happening between my crying and freaked out breathing. Normally, this shouldn't have scared me so bad, but I've dealt with stalkery type stuff before, and it felt the exact same way as it did before. Nightmarish. It wasn't until she called me again and told me she was outside the lobby and that it was locked that I decided to leave the bathroom. I know I made a mistake by not calling the police because he wasn't there anymore by the time she had gotten to the door. So I have no idea what he looks like, and our policy of never keeping the door closed didn't change, even after I had reported to the owners what had happened. I've had some issues with safety after that, but none as scary as this one. If it was some drunk, it would have been fine, but he sounded like he fully knew what he wanted to do, whatever it was. After that, I didn't work night shifts anymore. So whoever talked to me, let's not meet. Number 2. Okay, so this happened last week, and I just now have the stones to write about it. Last Friday night, my parents went out to their friend's house for game night, like they do every weekend. This meant that I had the house to myself, and I was not complaining. I did the usual. Drink a few pops, smoke a little, and lastly watch TV while falling asleep. I must have dozed out around 9 p.m. in my bed while watching TV as my parents were yet to get home. Around 10 p.m., I received a phone call from my parents asking me to pick them up because they drank a little too much. Waking up, I remember feeling an overwhelming sense of being watched, and it turns out that my instincts were not wrong. As I get into my car and turn it on, I get cold chills down my spine. My car lights shine on my fence, and that is always closed, and there my gate is, wide open. I get out of my car to go close it, and notice a foldable chair opened up outside my room with footprints on it. I'm instantly terrified more than I've ever been before. I quickly ran back into my car and frantically drove to get my parents. There are tons of problems with my family right now, and I cannot burden my parents anymore by telling them about this incident. I keep my blinds shut, but when I wake up in the middle of the night, sometime I know that they've been watching me. I can feel it. Let's not meet again, Chairman. Number 3. This past Thursday, things were rather routine at the supermarket I work at overnight as a price checker. A coworker was supposed to be in, but called off earlier in the day, so I was alone. I didn't mind it though. Working alone has its advantages for an introvert like myself. The night goes well. After the menial price check-in and creating a couple of new displays, I'm done by 2 a.m. I head home and wake up later that morning. I'm about to take a shower when the manager calls me on the cell phone and asks me if I could come in for a few minutes. I agreed, slightly confused about what, but headed out after showering and getting dressed. When I arrived, I saw a state trooper parked in the parking lot of the supermarket. Uh-oh, something must have happened. I walk inside and go back to my manager's office, where I find my manager sitting down at a table along with the trooper and the coworker that was supposed to be with me the previous night. At first I thought I was going to be busted for something I didn't do, or that my coworker and I were both screwed. As I took my seat, the trooper and my manager began to ask me a few questions regarding my night. I explained it was routine and uneventful. My manager then told me that he had something to show me. I sat there and watched as he turned towards his computer and pulled up some security camera footage. I sat in silence for a few seconds wondering what was up. When he pulled up one of our outside cameras and pointed to something, I felt my heart drop. I looked in surprise as I watched him play the camera footage. It showed a man, dressed in all dark clothing, with long hair, carrying what looked like a chulo, walking up to the store from the highway and right through the front entrance that I must have forgotten to lock. My heart sank as my manager pulled up several different camera recordings. We watched the cameras, and to my horror, I saw myself doing my night's worth of work while being completely oblivious to the man inside with me. There were moments while my manager fast-forwarded where I could see the men peering around corners at me, watching as I worked. I felt sick as I recollected my memories of the night before, walking past aisles, in and out of the restrooms, and even walking outside on my breaks while being unaware that somebody was silently in my vicinity at all times. I was surprised to learn, though, that I didn't seem to be the man's main focus. After only showing me a little bit of footage, my manager ceased and explained that the man was seemingly walking around like a zombie, not stealing anything, not stalking me, just walking aimlessly. Having only watched about a couple of minutes of footage, I still felt like I was going to vomit and asked if I could leave. When the trooper asked if I knew who it was, I declined and stated that I had never saw him before. My manager told me that he's going to have an assistant manager work with me for the next week or so and to not worry about anything. As I got into my car and left, I couldn't help but wonder what the man's motive was. He wasn't looking to steal anything, nor was he focused on me the entire time. That's what creeps me out, though, not knowing.